Skip, what did last night tell you about Paul George?
Last night, I felt sorry for Paul George. I think he's a really good guy and a really nice guy, and those Pacer fans were really hard on him last night. I watched this game. They were vicious to him at points last night. And the truth is, those Pacer fans always expected too much of that guy. He was the face of their franchise for 7 years, but he was never going to be the savior of their franchise. I'm going to say it again about Paul George. He's not a leading man. He's not an alpha. He's not a superstar. He's just a star, but he's more of a complimentary star, a sidekick. He's going to be a little better Oladipo to me, to Russell Westbrook, as Oladipo was last year, although Oladipo's having a very good year going solo in Indiana. But Paul George was never going to be able to carry the Pacers to a championship. He was always losing to LeBron James because he's a poor man's LeBron James.
They didn't know shame in that.
There's no shame. You know what? That is true. And that's what I was thinking last night when they were booing him so viciously with all their signs up. We loved you, past tense. And in the end, every time he faced LeBron in big moments, he crumbled every time. And again, Paul George went 31 and 34 in the playoffs, but look what happened against Miami. You were there in 13 and 14, but in 13 it went to Game 7. Game 7 was in Miami, and Paul George just didn't show up. He shot 2 for 9 that day, 1 for 4 from 3. And then in 14, they lost Game 6 to close out game 117 to 92. And then remember last year, again, the Pacers weren't very good, but remember Game 1, they had him on the ropes. And twice he turned down last-second shots for C.J. Miles to take it. Remember that one?
Yeah.
And then remember the closeout Game 4, they got swept.
Yeah.
But he had a 3 to tie, and he missed that. And in clutch situations, he was 2 for 11 in the 4-game series. I mean, he's just not that guy. He's a good player, but he's not a great player. And again, is he going to hit the free agent market again after this year? He might. Would I spend a whole lot of money for him? If you want a complimentary star, that's fine. But is he going to change life for the Lakers? He is not. You will expect too much of him.
I thought he was pressing last night. He wanted to leave a great impression on the fan base that he played for 7 years. And I thought he tried to press, and the 3 of 14 and the 4 turnovers would let you know he was pressing. Skip, I'm not so sure he was meant to be a second option. And then again, I'm not so sure anybody's a second option to Russell, because Kevin Durant couldn't take it anymore. So I don't know what guy that you can pair with Russell that's going to help him, because you look at Oladipo. Oladipo looked like a different guy in Indiana than he did at OKC.
It's hard, man. If Kevin were sitting right here, Kevin Durant, he'd be saying, yep.
An MVP says, I can't take it anymore.
That's correct.
So what other player that you think can be great, that can help Russell get to the Western Conference Finals, break through and get to and win a championship? Who can do that? Because Kevin Durant couldn't. Victor Oladipo, whether you think of him as a superstar, he looks to be a player on the rise. He couldn't. Paul George is better than what he's showing in OKC. I do know that.
Yeah, he's a little better than that. I would agree. Look at this stat. Do you realize of the 31 players who have taken at least 400 shots so far in this NBA season?
Yes.
Dead last is Russell Westbrook at 39% from the field. That's horrendously bad.
Yeah.
Guess who's second to last? Carmelo. Third to last, Paul George. So your big three in Oklahoma City are the 3 worst high-volume shooters in the league so far.
Yeah.
I don't know how they won that game last night, because they were all pathetic last night.
Because the Pacers came back down to earth. Oladipo hit a step-back 3 in Kevin Love's face. They win that ball game. He scored 33. The next night, 2 nights later, he goes for 47. And then all of a sudden, he's Victor Oladipo again, 9 of 26. And this is what happens. Because you're right. I mean, your leading scorer was Steven Adams, 11 of 16 for 23 points. Paul George had.
By the way, real quick, because you've been tough on Steven Adams.
He played unbelievable.
Hey, he's been the big one in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
They've got the little 3 and the big one, because the last 7 games he's averaging 19 and 10. He just took that game over last night.
Yeah, Russell was 3 of 17. Russell had 10 points. He scored 10 points, and it took him 17 shots to do it.
And the big 3 went a combined 10 for 45. How do you win that game? But you did. And you almost blew it at the end. They had a lead.
And Russ, what's happening is now Russ is struggling from the free throw line. He was 3 of 7 from the free throw line, Skip. And look, I think Paul George is better, but maybe, Skip, I don't know if we'll ever find anybody that can be the complementary piece to Russ that's going to help Russ get to where he ultimately wants to be. I just don't see it, Skip. He's a volume shooter, and if you're a rhythm player, Russ will take you out of your rhythm because he holds the ball so much. He has the ball so much, and he's a volume shooter.
Is he?
So he's going to get up a bunch of shots, even though they're not going in. His mentality is Kobe Bryant. The next one to fall.
That is
the next one to fall.
Yep.
And then as we saw in that playoff game, he entered the fourth quarter, he was like 17 or 23, and somehow he ended up being 17 or 43.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know what? This is where I really admire LeBron James. Let's just take LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
When he has taken his talents to South Beach and gone back to Cleveland, he'll go light them up, man.
Yeah.
Like and Kevin last year, he goes to Oklahoma City, he lit them up.
Yeah.
They can scream and yell all they want. They can ridicule all they want. He lit them up and shut them up.
Yes.
And Paul George goes back, and I think Russ and Carmelo wanted him to have a big night, and
Right.
he's just crumbling. You know, that's who he is. He's a talented guy. He's just not that alpha. He's not that superstar mentality. He doesn't have that assassin in it.
But some of these, and I get it, everybody thinks they're team, but Skip, let's be realistic. Indiana, did they really think they were going to get past LeBron? Did they really think they were going to get past the big three Celtics? I mean, they need to have like realistic expectations.
They're fans. There's no such thing.
But I get, okay, Boston. Okay, look, we've got championship. The Lakers, we got championship. Indiana hadn't won anything since George McGinnis. You remember George McGinnis?
Do I?
Before your time. Most people remember with the Sixers, though.
They took Jordan to Game 7 with Reggie.
Yeah.
That was as far as you're going to go.
Yeah. So, Skip, that might be as far as you go on this bridge.
Yep.
Game 7.
Mm-hmm.
The Indiana Pacers took the Heat. Game 7.
Mm-hmm.
They went to a Game 6.
They did.
They got swept last year in 4. Maybe that's as far as you can go.
That is it. I agree.
Because you're not going to spend the kind of money that it's going to take to keep those guys,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not going to be able to attract other guys to come join with. Because what we see now, players want to play with each other because they like each other. They've known each other for the longest time. They played AAU against each other, and so they have no problem playing with one another.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you get somebody to come to Indiana? I mean, I like going country kitchen. Ooh, they got them old oxtail, them neck bones. I'm talking big as your fist. And that old cornbread, like this here, like pound cake.
Well, yeah, but that's all the more point. That's why the fans are so salty and petty about it.
I know. It hurts because you lose. I mean, you're losing your prized possession. I mean, you don't get a Paul George every other draft or every 5 drafts, Skip. So when you get that one player that he's good, you want to keep him. But he doesn't want to be there. He didn't want to be there. He wasn't going to resign. Let's see what we can get for him.
And he wasn't going to win you a championship.
No.
Right. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Be sure to check out more of the best clips from Undisputed, or go watch a few segments from the newest show on FS1, First Things First, with Chris Carter and Nick Wright.